This is Top of the Morning. I'm Steve Izan. We have a great special today. It's a show honoring Nancy Pelosi. We'll be right back. Please stay with us.
I'll start with a very special thank you to our friends and underwriters for today's program, Peter and Judy Kovler. Thank you so much. On behalf of our partnership with the National Women's History Museum, we're honored to host this celebration for the first female Speaker of the House and current Democratic leader, Nancy Pelosi. Leader Pelosi has worked diligently to strengthen America's middle class, increasing the minimum wage and financial aid for students, a new GI education bill for veterans of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, increased services for veterans, their families, and their caregivers, which is so important. Nationally, she has led the effort to provide the first U.S. contribution to the Global Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. Leader Pelosi's work on behalf of women is unparalleled. Her leadership in passing the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act, her work as a champion for women's health, Social Security, Title IX, economic well-being for women everywhere. She has impacted the lives of every person in this tent and every woman globally. As Speaker, she has created new leadership opportunities for the next generation of American women, ensuring a record number of committee chairmanships are being held by women, electing more women to Congress, and opening the doors for other women remain among her top priorities. So it's particularly fitting that we recognize Leader Pelosi today in this very historic House and Garden, where generations of women have fought tirelessly for women's rights. In 1929, Alice Paul and the NWP moved into this building after securing the right to vote for American women. And until the 1970s, it was used as both their home and their workplace. From the beginning, this house operated as a center for women's political thought and feminist activity, and served as a base for them to lobby Congress. Over the course of many decades, the occupants of this house authored more than 600 pieces of federal, state, and local legislation, 300 of which were ultimately passed, and all of which greatly impacted the lives of women. Since the late 1990s, and now operating as the Seawall Belmont House and Museum, we continue this vital work by sharing their history and convening conversations about continued equality. Through programs like this, we continue to empower women by teaching women to demand their rights, to take on new leadership roles, and to recruit more women to run for office. The Emmy Award-winning Rachel Maddow show, I know, is popular with everyone, and we're delighted to honor Leader Pelosi and have Rachel Maddow with us today. It's a long line of continuing the tradition of honoring women who work on issues that are important for women around the globe. We were proud to honor Leader Pelosi with our annual Alice Award in 2010, and this September we will honor former First Lady Laura Bush. So today, let's talk about Leader Pelosi and Rachel Maddow. The Rachel Maddow Show was the most successful, immediately boosting ratings in its time period when it debuted in September 2008. Maddow was also named a breakout star of 2008 by the Washington Post and one of the top 10 political newcomers by Politico.com. Maddow is the author of Drift, The Unmooring of American Military Power, which debuted at #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list this past March. I'm delighted to welcome both of them. On behalf of my board of directors and colleagues at the National Women's History Museum, thank you for being here. Please help me welcome Leader Pelosi and Nancy.
concurrent interest. You are the member of Congress for my brother. My parents were married in the chapel of the Presidio, which when my father was a captain in the Air Force, and when it ceased to be a military base, you are the reason it was returned to the people of the state of California and the city of San Francisco for their use. When I lived in San Francisco, you were my member of Congress. And as a gay kid growing up in the San Francisco Bay Area in the 80s, amid the devastation of the AIDS crisis, coming of age and realizing I was a gay person at the time of the AIDS crisis, and it's almost unimaginable context for somebody growing up. When you first went to Congress in June of 1987, and in your first remarks as a member of Congress said that you were there to fight AIDS. For me, as a gay person, as a caretaker for people with AIDS, as an AIDS activist, you became the person who all of us believed that no matter where we lived anywhere in the country, that you were our member of Congress. So, 25 years in Congress, you are the most powerful woman in American politics ever. You've cracked what you called the marble ceiling. And I wondered if you could describe how the marble ceiling works and how it works more poorly now that you have cracked it.
Well, first of all, Rachel, thank you for your very kind introductory remarks, for honoring us with your presence here today. I couldn't wait to get here to see Rachel Maddow. And that your connection to San Francisco Bay Area, the Presidio, the heart of San Francisco, is one that we take great pride in and brag about, exaggerate, and again, are just so proud of you. My voice is changing, it's because there's like an air conditioning here that comes on and off. But I want to thank Seawall Belmont House for giving and museum for giving this opportunity for us to come together to talk about issues that are of concern to women in America, and that includes everything. And as Rachel has demonstrated, that even includes the national security of our country. Congratulations on your book. It's very important that women's faces of opinion and leadership. So it is an excitement to be here, and the HIV/AIDS issue is one that I feel personal responsibility for. San Francisco 25 years ago. Well, actually, that comment that I made on the floor of the House will be Saturday. I was elected last Saturday. Well, it wasn't a Saturday at the time. And this coming Saturday will be the day that I was sworn in. And when I talked about AIDS, after my comments were over, my colleagues said, "Why did you say that?" I said, "Well, what are you talking about?" They said, "Why would you want to be..." The first thing that they know about you is that you are here to talk about AIDS. I said, "Well," I said it for a simple reason, because I am, and that is what I told my constituents I would do, and that is my responsibility. Here we are 25 years later. I never would have thought, Rachel, at that time, that projecting 25 years forward, we still would not have a cure. We made great progress in maintaining the quality, improving and maintaining the quality of life, ending discrimination, doing those kinds of things. But in prevention and care and research and the rest, we still have so much work to do. 25 years. But science is our friend, and that's it's an answer to our prayers. So in any event, thank you for acknowledging the AIDS HIV work. Paige Harrington, all of you, thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to chat today.
On the issue of AIDS, just taking that as an example about how politics has changed, talk about the reaction to your initial comments when you said that. Essentially, how dare you bring that up on their first day? Now everybody knows you're going to want to work on that. You think about the comments at the time of the lack of interest, the lack of stated interest from President Reagan at the time, the hostility from conservative figures like Jesse Helms over the issue of AIDS. And by the end of Jesse Helms' career, he was talking with Bono about doing, not only changing his attitude towards AIDS in the United States, but supporting American investment in that subject around the globe. Look at the contrast of Ronald Reagan and his willful disregard of the issue in the 80s Fast forward to his vice president's son, George W. Bush, so conservative on so many other issues as president, but yet he led on the issue of PEPFAR. On these social conservative issues, can you imagine, whether it's gay rights, whether it's abortion, whether it is women's reproductive health more broadly, any of these other issues on which we are so polarized now, can you imagine a similar transformation happening in any of the conservative figures?
Oh, yes, I do. I always say, to us it is inevitable, to them it is inconceivable. It is our job, it is our job to shorten the distance between the inevitable and the inconceivable. But it takes not only our work inside to maneuver and persuade, the outside mobilization is absolutely essential. In almost every issue that you can name, the American people are ahead of the elected officials. And you mentioned Bono. Yesterday I had the privilege of being in New York City with some of my colleagues with Bono, who honored me on my 25th anniversary. He and Richard Garrett was good. And both of them had worked on the AIDS issue. And actually we started working with Bono on the debt forgiveness issue, the Millennium Challenge, the Jubilee year, to end the debt that so many countries were oppressed with, poor countries in the world. And that is the initiation of communication with Jesse Helms was on the debt forgiveness. And it was said to Bono when he first came to us, you have to be bipartisan. You're going to have to reach out to some of these people. Next thing you know, Jesse Helms is at a U2 concert. But it did take, as I said to him, you're AAA. You had the access, you created the awareness among a broader audience as a rock star with a young following, and you took action. And that's how we moved this. So it took a lot of convincing people on the merits of some of the burdens that an older generation has about some of these cultural issues. And that's why I'm so proud of President Obama, because from day one was ending discrimination in the workplace for women, a Lilly Ledbetter, and almost the last bill that he passed, the other bookend to was repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and in between many other pieces of legislation that was liberating for people. And again, as I say, I think the public is way ahead of elected officials.
You've been able to talk in a way that I think has very much energized Democrats about the connection between policy and social justice, like we just were. Policy and important outcomes for the country. One of the policy fights that you won, which I think had profound political impact, it doesn't get a lot of attention when people talk about your rise to power as Speaker, was right after George W. Bush was reelected in 2004. He was reelected in November 2004. As soon as he was inaugurated in January 2005, he set out around the country on a barnstorming tour to privatize Social Security. And that went great. And when he started to do this, he thought he was going to win, and the poll numbers looked good. And you were a key part of what I think has to be universally acknowledged as a Democratic defeat of that Republican initiative. How did you beat George W. Bush on that side?
Well, it was a decision that we made. We're going to preserve Social Security. And this is a pillar of our society, of security, retirement security for our seniors, and all that that meant to the rest of the family. And so when I had the opportunity to become a leader, of course it was my goal to attain the majority. And we went to some people on the outside, to the private sector, and said, if you were, I don't know any of these things, but if you were, say, Tylenol and you wanted to be Advil, I don't know which one is first, but if you were number 2 and you wanted to be number 1, what would you do? And they told us, you have to, a 4-step initiative on how we do that. It'll take longer if you want to be so joyful. But anyway, the point is, that was, say, December, after Senator Kerry had lost the presidential. And in January, President Bush gave really a gift to those who wanted to protect Social Security by saying that he was going to privatize Social Security. I remind you, he's newly elected. He's 58% in the polls. That's very high. especially after a tough fight, and he was very much up here. And our members, working with Senator Reid, Leader Reid in the Senate, with our members, House and Senate, we decided that we were going to go out there to do this. But we had to be unified. It took discipline. And I think you may recall, Rachel, that at the time, we made a decision. I know the publishers who are our hosts today, thank you, Judy and Peter, they were so much a part of helping us with this. At the time we said, President Bush wants to privatize Social Security. The Democrats want to preserve Social Security. And that was the fight. Social Security, privatized. But people said, oh, why don't you have a plan of your own? Important Democrats were saying, poor Democrats in the House, they don't have a plan of their own. Exactly. Our plan was Social Security. And the private sector advisors said, if you start saying, well, we're going to age of this, the tax, the this, you will be confused with what he is doing. You must not offer another plan. It has to be about his plan. My colleagues who are here will tell you that on a weekly basis at least, members would come in and say, is it time for us to have a plan yet? And believe me, we probably had 250 plans, House and Senate combined. Is it time for us to have a plan? And I can say to them, never does never work for you. In terms of the contrast, Social Security, privatized. And that's the beginning of the end. And because our members trusted us, Harry and me, trusted the two of us, then we were able to keep people together. President Bush, really a lovely man. No, it really, no, we disagree in terms of policy. But he would say, I'm going to 23 states in 23 days, something like that. And I would say, I want you to go to 46 states in 46 days, and I'll pay your way. Because we are going to be there to inoculate against your message, to protect Social Security and educate as to what you said doesn't work. So at the end of it, I said, nothing. And he said, well, I achieved my goal. I said, you did? Thank God you didn't. He said, my goal was to raise awareness as to the challenge that Social Security faces. Well, that's a different goal than what he said. But he gave us the perfect issue. But for us, it wasn't an issue. It was a value. It was an ethic. It was who we are as a country. We were going to fight that fight, even if it meant taking the slings and arrows of our friends who were saying, why don't you have a plan? 4 years, they don't have a plan. Some, even in the media, saying, how can you possibly come here without a plan? We have a plan. It's called Social Security. So with that would really, by September, he was at 38. But we worked, you take this chance to say, we worked with President Bush on many issues. We passed the biggest energy bill ever to pass in our country, lowering the CAFE standards, emissions, along with conservation and efficiencies and the rest. Hugely important bill. We worked with him on his version of the stimulus package was to make sure it was refundable so that poor people and poor families and families with children could get the stimulus too. We worked with him on PEPFAR. That was a great thing that President Bush did, but it would not have happened without a Democratic Congress funding it from $4 billion to $8 billion, and some of the people who worked on that are the lady out here. But anyway, some of our colleagues who worked on that issue know that it was the House and the Congress that made that possible. We worked with him on probably the most unpopular bill that anybody will ever vote for, ever, TARP, because we were told that if we had not acted, there would be no economy in 4 days. No economy. Mr. Bernanke, Mr. Chairman, do you agree with the characterization that Secretary Paulson has given to the state of the financial institution in our country? And he, an expert on the Great Depression, said, if we do not act immediately, we will not have an economy by Monday. this was Thursday night. So we did that. We worked with President Bush. The Republicans did not want to vote with that. I don't want to get partisan, but they didn't want to vote with that, and they didn't. They took the Democratic vote to make that happen. We got some Republican votes, but not nearly what would be expected for such a vote. So in any event, we worked with President Bush every place that we could. That's why it's so odd to see, even though you have differences of opinion, that you don't decide that you're going to find solutions and get results for the American people, recognizing that we're different branches of government, maybe different parties, but we all are Americans and have an obligation to get some results and get the job done. So in any event, that's what we did. We stuck together, we took the heat. Remember when people would say, poor dears, they don't even have a plan? That was the plan.
The stimulus, health reform, Wall Street reform, student loan reform, the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, the new GI Bill, the number of major pieces of legislation that you not only saw passed in the House, which would also include cap and trade, we can include the DREAM Act there, but beyond those, the ones that also became law, is, and I don't just mean to flatter you, but it is the kind of list of legislation that we associate with people after whom we name large buildings in Washington. Your speakership was Sam Rayburn-esque, and I wonder how you connect that list of accomplishments to the idea of political capital. And do you think having accomplished so much made it harder for Democrats to compete in the first midterm election after President Obama was elected in 2010? Did just the magnitude of what you had been able to do legislatively make it easier for Republicans to claim that the pendulum needed to swing back?
I think that if I had to use one word to describe what made the difference in the 2010 election, it would be money. Money. This is really important to know. People said, oh, you did this, you did that. We had 9.5% unemployment. And it's very hard to explain a health care bill or environmental law, whatever it happens to be, when people don't have a job. And they don't want to hear, Rachel, that it would be 15% unemployment, right? My colleagues, Jackie and Doris and Susan. It would be 15, and Anna's here someplace? Okay. But it would be 15%. President Obama was a job creator from day one. The Recovery Act, 3.5 million jobs saved or created. Go on from there. But if you don't have a job, you don't really want to hear how bad it could have been. And that's a screen that's very hard to get through. But if you put into that unlimited, undisclosed, special interest money coming in like the last week of the campaign, that is really insurmountable. I think it's really important, and I think that we came to do a job. We didn't come to keep a job or have a job, we came to do a job. So we would never say, well, we would not have done health care or Wall Street reform and the rest. Yet all of those, whether it's healthcare industry, whether it's Wall Street, whether it's people against labor, the people who are against collective bargaining, all that kind of money coming in against us, we can contend with if it's accountable. We know who it is, and it's within the limits of the law. But undisclosed special interest money coming in at the end, that was too much. But we would never trade our accomplishments for anything. But I'll tell you this, because we believe, as with Social Security, as with Medicare, health care for all Americans is a right, not a privilege for just a few, and that was the right. Make a promise to you, and this is a promise that I made at the invitation of President George Herbert Walker Bush, father, on February 20th was Founders Day, and President's Day, and we were at the University of Texas A&M, College Station, at the site of the Bush Library and the This is the President's School of Government and Public Policy. He invited me there to talk on President's Day. You can just imagine what the Republicans thought of that. This year. And what I told that lovely audience that day, and supposedly the most conservative school in Texas, I don't know, they were lovely. What I told them that day is we must reduce the role of money in politics. We must. We've got to take it to like public funding of campaigns, and we must increase the level of civility in campaigns. And here comes the promise. And when we do, I promise you we'll have many more women elected to public office. And young people and minorities represent the diversity of our country. So I think we were something like 250,000 votes from having the majority. You know, they won this big number of votes, but in terms of the majority, it was only 200 votes here, 300 votes here, and that account came from millions of dollars just being poured in the last days that would go unanswered in terms of the misrepresentation. But not to relitigate that, just to spring from that question, but really we have to look to the future and say we have to take back our democracy. This is a government of the plutocracy, of the wealthy, or of the few, oligarchy. That's not where founders sacrificed their life, liberty, and personal freedom for. And this is something else. And nothing less is at stake in this debate than our democracy, where the voice and the vote of the many determine elections, not the checkbooks of the very, very few. They said that 3 people gave more to Governor Walker last night than all of the money raised by Tom Barron. I mean, it's not, whatever side you're on, maybe you're the one who can raise more of the money. It's not about that. It's about, it's gone too far, it's over the edge, we have to pull it back. And when we do, one of the benefits will be much more diversity and people able to take a chance and run.
In terms of getting to that point, and you have consistently talked about public financing for elections and how important that is. You've championed the Disclose Act, for
And so
example.
have you.
Yeah, I've ranted about it. I guess that's never been spoken. But one of the things that I think is so important about what's happened in Wisconsin, not just last night, but what gave rise to the recall in the first place, was the fact that the Wisconsin Republicans under Scott Walker were using public policy to essentially dismantle public sector unions in Wisconsin. And that, however you feel about union rights in the country, it had one very practical partisan effect, which is that unions had been big supporters of Democratic candidates and Democratic causes, and had had a lot to do with the Democratic grounding. So if they go away, in terms of whether or not that corporate money that's disproportionately supporting Republicans can be answered, at least on the Democratic side, before there is some kind of reform, Democrats do not have a way to compete in terms of big outside money in elections. And that is the reality now in Wisconsin. It is the reality in states where they have essentially eliminated union rights. And it looks like Republicans, particularly after last night's results, will be emboldened to pursue that in as many states as they can. I think structurally that's a pretty dire electoral situation for Democrats. And I'm wondering if there is a secret Democratic plan B that I don't know about. Something to bridge the distance between now and the 4 days of public financing for elections, which I don't know when that's going to happen.
You mean apart from Rachel Maddow?
That's a bad point.
But let me say this, I think, let's look at where we are. We are in a situation where there is endless, this is not about, well, should we put money here or we endless money that does not have to make a decision about one race or another. An endless spigot of special interest, secret money pouring into the system. Some of it is, you know, there's some people who are conspicuous, but by and large, the money that came after us, nobody knows who that is. Okay, so we have endless money just with misrepresentation suffocating the system. You have voter suppression by some of the same people who were elected in 2010, state levels, and suppressing the vote. 20 states have initiatives that are in place along the way suppress the vote. And you have poison the debate, the dialogue. Suffocate the system, suppress the vote, poison the debate. So what average person said, pops on both your houses, I don't even know what you're talking about, and they turn off to it. And that is a victory for the special interest. It's a victory for the special interest. We might as well just go to those people and say, who do you want to be president? Who do you want to be speaker? Who do you want to be governors in our states? Because there's no way to contend with that much money. So we have to disclose. That's really important. We passed it in the House. They didn't pass it in the Senate, and therefore there's no disclosure. But we have to call, and there's plenty of people around the country doing this as shareholders, as employees, as customers, as clients, saying to businesses, are you putting secret money into campaigns? We want to know. So we have to keep that fight, shine a bright light on this big money, so that people know that this something. Norm Ornstein called it the alien viper oozing slime. Now he's an unemotional kind of a guy, as far as I know. But imagine we had a hearing, an alien viper oozing slime, and that's what it is. It's just that. And so disclose, win, reform, and then overturn the Supreme, amend the Constitution to overturn the Citizens United decision. We have fabulous candidates to win. We have a message that, the Republicans are for millionaires, not the middle class. They want to sever the Medicare guarantee. They want senior kids to pay more for higher education. And that's basically our theme, reigniting the American dream, building ladders of opportunity. People want to work hard, play by the rules, take responsibility to have opportunity for success. And small business, entrepreneurship in the middle class are the pillars of that. And our members are going in their district. We only need $5 or $20. I'm reluctant to go too far into politics in this beautiful setting on this lovely afternoon. Yeah, we have a plan, and it involves because I tell you this, without any, I don't fear of any exaggerate, nothing less is at stake in our democracy. Say what you will about the issues, think what you will. We've always had differences of opinion. We could just send one person if we didn't. No, we have differences, region, age, whatever, and political philosophy and the rest. But that doesn't mean that we cannot find solutions, and that's why I was so complimented when President Bush invited me to the President's Day presentation at Texas A&M. It was different then than it is now, and but nonetheless, it is. We have a motto in San Francisco: don't agonize, organize. And that's the difference. It is going to organize our way to victory. We just need 25 seats. I think that's very good. I want 35. I want more always.
On the issue of the spread of time that you have spent in Congress, you came to Congress elected 25 years ago, and you've written about how you expected to have a 10-year time frame. You got 10 years what you're going to devote to this, and then next chapter of your life would start. What did you think the next thing you would do would be after those 10 years? And once you were in Congress, did you ever think about leaving? Did you ever think about going home? Once you landed, did you know that you just wanted president?
Well, I didn't come here to be a lifer, if that's what you mean. No, I figured about 10 years would be an appropriate time, and then I would hopefully by then have grandchildren, which was my goal in life, and I went up as dear Madeline, and that was great. I really wasn't thinking, I didn't even know I was going to be running for Congress 25 years and 5 months ago. it just happened, the opportunity presented itself, and Thomas Burton, a woman, member of Congress, who decided that I should be a member of Congress. Now, this has happened with men in the history of our country, but when Sala did it, it was like, who said she could anoint somebody? But in any event, I promised her I would run. I did. I didn't know if I would win. It was a tough race, but I did. And so I came, and then we lost. In the meantime, we lost the Congress. And we lost in 94, 96, 98, 2000, and my 10-year anniversary was like in 99, it was 97, it's 97. And I thought, I know how to win elections. I know how to win elections. I grew up campaigning both with my family in Baltimore. I know how to win elections. So we had an election in 2000 in California. We won 5 seats that year. And I thought we would have won the House, but then they lost seats in the rest of the country, and we didn't. So then I said, you know what? 1 in 5 kids in America lives in poverty. That's my driving engine. That's what I wake up praying for in the morning and when I go to sleep at night. I can't stand the fact that my kids are so blessed in every way. And that doesn't necessarily mean economically or financially. It means with love and care and all of that. And these children, some of them, even though they are living in poverty, have love and affection, but they don't have the same kinds of opportunities. And so that is my driving force. And one issue led to another, and then I got the chance to be in leadership, and we won, and then I became speaker. One of the things that I really want to do before I leave here, and it won't be finished before I leave, but that we must get much farther down the road, is the issue of child care in America. Affordable, quality child care. Here we are at the Seawall Belmont House and Museum. Where these women of such courage did such a remarkable thing. Imagine the courage at that time. Women weren't even allowed to go out by themselves. Even the women 50 years before that in Seneca Falls, etc. But in any event, women got the right to vote just a little over 90 years ago. Then during World War II, women were in the workforce, more effort, and then there was a more widespread, higher education of women, and then women in the professions. But the link that isn't in there is affordable, quality child care. And that's something that really has to happen regardless of your income level or your thinking on the subject. There should be affordable, quality child care in our country. And almost was there. President Nixon was about to sign the bill, and then there was an intervention from more conservative elements in the country. And that was that, and not much has happened since then. But I think that is really important because the growth of America is going to benefit from the increased involvement of women in our economy and in the leadership of our financial institutions and in our small business. The national security of our country will be strengthened by the increased involvement of women at all levels, including at the highest level of our national security. Whether you're talking about the academic world, whether you're talking about politics and government, the answer to almost every how can we do better is one word, one word, women. More women in power. So, if we really want our country to grow economically and in every way, the involvement of women, whether it's in small businesses or entrepreneurial spirit or through educative innovation in the classroom, we really are best is yet to come for our country because more opportunity. What, 17 or is it 19 of CEOs of the Fortune 500 are women? You can't be telling us that the talent is not there. But as we talked earlier about money and reducing that and increasing civility, kind of a conversation where women can thrive and succeed. It's about making our own environment. We're playing on somebody else's field. I mean, whether it's politics, I've been supporting women, and as was so nicely pointed out earlier, wanting to increase the number of women in Congress. There were like 20 when I went. Now they're closer to 80, but that's still not enough. At that rate, it'll take us 200 years to get to parity. So we can't, all right, we tried this incremental thing, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 10 steps forward, 2 steps back. That isn't working for us in the right way. So let us make our own environment one in which women can be much more successful. By then I'm talking about elected politics, and at the same time in full participation in every aspect of our lives with the child care. We've got to make it easier for women to succeed. Not easier because we can't do the hard job, but easier because the arena that we are in has been defined by others for the purpose of others, and not really to give any opportunity or power away. Nobody has ever done that, given it away, and they're not going to give it away now, and so we just have to go take it.
Note on which to end. Take it. I think is actually.
Let me tell you one more story. This story. Many of you have probably heard me tell this before, but I can't leave the Seawall Belmont House and Museum without telling it again, and I'll give you the abbreviated version. You may not think it is, but it is. And that is the following. We walk upstairs and we see Susan B. Anthony and we see Alice Paul, and oh my gosh, how wonderful all of that is, and Magic Bird, the women who came here and plotted and planned a women's party and all that. First day I went to the White Houses representing the Democrats in the House of Representatives. Went to the White House, been there a million times, didn't even think about being apprehensive about the meeting. And so I go into the room, the door closes behind me, and as I begin to sit down at the table, I realized that this was unlike any other meeting I had ever been to at the White House. In fact, it was unlike any meeting that any woman had ever been to at the White House. Because it was a meeting of the leadership, the president, the vice president, and the leaders, House and Senate, Democratic and Republican, to sit down and talk about the legislative agenda. Now, women have been at the table, appointed by the president, and that's a wonderful thing. But I was sitting there with my power derived from the election of my colleagues, not the appointment of one person. So my voice at that table had a different authority, for lack of a better word. So anyway, we go in the room, there's President Bush, gracious and lovely as ever, and saying, welcome me, and blah, blah, blah. And as he's speaking, I feel really closed in my seat. I mean, it was like I was really closed in my seat. I've never had that experience before or since. Really closed in my seat. And he must have been thinking, what's going on there? But he probably would have been thinking that anyway. So, all of a sudden I realized that on that chair with me, Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Alice Paul, Lucretia Mott, they were all there. Sojourner Truth, they were all there on that chair. And I could hear them say, at last we have a seat at the table. As soon as they said it, I thought, we want more. But I really, not that we needed any reality on it, we all know that we all stand on the shoulders of many who have gone before us, and that others stand on our shoulders and will continue to do so. As women advance, we want to have just something very different, not incremental, but kicking open the door to something much better for women. And in closing, and this time I really mean it, let me just say what an honor is to be at Seawall Belmont House and Museum. It's always a joy to come here. It's so strengthening, inspiring, and the rest. But isn't it great to be here with Rachel Maddow?
is President and CEO of the National Women's History Museum. We are often asked why women's history, and today is living proof that we are able to preserve the stories of the Congresswoman, the extraordinary courage that she has demonstrated throughout her career. Elizabeth Cady Stanton says that the best protection any woman can have is her courage. So Nancy Pelosi demonstrates that to us every day, and we are so proud to have you in service to our country. We are so thankful to Rachel Maddow for taking time out of her busy life, and of course she's another woman of courage. The Seawall Belmont House and Museum, to Paige Harrington, we are so grateful to be partnering with you on this lovely day, and thank you for the beautiful weather, oh by the way. And we are so honored to be in this house where so many incredible women have walked through the door, so we are always pleased to partner with you on events. Judy and Peter Kevlar, we particularly appreciate your support. Last but not least, to each of you for coming here to show that you appreciate what women have been doing to break down the barriers for all of us, and that you are here to celebrate women. We thank you. It is our fervent hope that the National Women's History Museum will build the first and only museum in our nation's capital, in the world, that celebrates women and the breadth of women's history. We invite you to support our endeavor and join us at other events in the future. So while England is celebrating their queen, we celebrate ours.
I'm going to see the president tomorrow. Unfortunately, we have votes, so I have to run. What about Canada? My darling? Oh, well, we have to keep fighting. Thank you.
You're going to hear an air conditioner in the background, but I'm here with Joan Wages, who is the president of the National Women's History Museum, the place that we're at right now where the event took place. Joan, pretty wonderful and momentous event. Please tell us a little bit about the museum as well as why this event is important.
Well, the National Women's History Museum is working with Congress to identify a site on or next to the National Mall. And we are working to preserve women's history because there is not a women's history museum in any nation's capital in the world. So it's very unbelievable that women today still don't have a museum that recognizes their history. And the importance of today is to recognize someone like Nancy Pelosi, who has spent 25 years of her life in working on issues that impact women or are about women, and that she has broken down so many barriers herself on behalf of women.
Joan, this National Women's Museum on the Mall, how far along is it? Is there a site actually identified yet?
We are working with Congress to create a commission that would identify the site for us.
So that's the first start.
Yes,
that's the first start.
Yes. We've had some bills introduced, but now we've decided that this is the best way to go.
Well, I hope yours goes more quickly than the World War II
Yeah,
memorial.
I know.
You think that was only built a couple of years ago, and World War II was 50 years ago. So we're
But
hoping
they didn't start right after.
They didn't. Well, okay, all right. But so we're hopefully first step is getting the commission started.
Exactly.
All right, and the existing location that we're at now.
Yes, it was so
It has a wonderful history.
It does. This was the home of the National Women's Party. The National Women's Party, of course, lobbied Congress and raised awareness to get the vote for women. So this is an extraordinary house and represents many good and wonderful things for women.
We're back. I'm here with Paige Harrington. She's the executive director of the Seawall.
Belmont House and Museum.
Okay. What does the executive director do?
Everything as it comes up during the day, from soup to nuts. That's what you do when you run a small historic site.
Okay.
So we have a full-time staff of 4, including me, and we have wonderful part-time people and wonderful volunteers, but mostly it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
And for our viewers, give them please a little bit of history. If they came down here, what are the hours? What would they see?
The Seawall Belmont House and Museum is open to the public from Wednesday through Sunday from noon until 5, and this is the Women's History Museum dedicated to telling the story of Alice Paul, the suffragists, and the National Women's Party. So we have all of the original banners and artifacts that the suffragists used when they picked the White House and when they secured the vote.
Paige, in terms of the event that was held here today, everyone seemed pretty enthusiastic. What was your take?
Oh, it was absolutely fantastic. We were honoring Leader Pelosi for her 25 years of service in the United States Congress, and we had the indomitable Rachel Maddow, who was here to give her some questions and have a very candid interview with her. And if you know either of them, you'll know that they're both a force to be reckoned with, and they just went side by side and had everyone laughing and crying and completely enjoying and being respectful for all of the work that Leader Pelosi has accomplished.
There were some pretty good stories.
It was great stories.
They were great stories. Paige, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, and please come back.
We're back. I'm here with Jan Duplain of the National Women's History Museum. This event today, honoring Speaker Pelosi, Rachel Maddow doing the interview, 40 minutes of great questions and dialogue. It sounds like a little redundant, but how successful do you think this was?
I think it took us over the top and through the hills. And to know that her roots are in Baltimore, that we should be very proud of this woman. And the fact that Nancy Pelosi, we have to remember, being the first woman to ever be elected Speaker of the House, that she was she was the third in line to the presidency. The power that she held. And what I loved about her, she does it with charm and wit and grace. She's the perfect, for me, she's the perfect representative of women. She embodies all of the traits.
Touched when she mentioned the first time that she went in to sit with the president and the other leaders of Congress about how that she felt she was standing on the shoulders of those that had come before her.
Yes. Well, I know, I think so many of us feel that, and we have got to remember, this is why I'm involved with the National Women's History Museum, because not everybody would know the names of Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Lucretia Mott, and Susan B. May probably know Susan B. Anthony, because we've done a lot of special, but Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott would not. And of course, Alice Paul had a huge role in terms of the Equal Rights Amendment and played a huge role with the Seawall Belmont House, Sojourner Truth, and others that she mentioned. There are so many women in history in terms of the women's movement, but also because of the Women's History Museum. We've got on our website 300 biographies of women that you would never, Hedy Lamarr, for example, being one of them, that was, when you trace back her work as an inventor, she was an inventor as well as being the most beautiful woman. Did you know, in addition to that, we think she was part of the launching of the cell phone today.
I'm aware of that. You mentioned the website for our viewers.
Yeah.
What's the website that they could go to?
Okay, www.nwhm.org.
Very good.
NationalWomen'sHistoryMuseum.org.
Thank you very much for coming on the program.
Well, we appreciate you being here today. Thank you for coming over from
We're happy to
Baltimore.
be here.
Yay,
Thank you.
Baltimore.
Yay, Baltimore. We're here with Kate Campbell Stevenson. It was a wonderful event. Please give us your take on it.
It was so exciting to have Nancy Pelosi here, who's been such a leader for so many years in our whole country, but especially such a visible woman leader. And Rachel Maddow, it was exciting to have that energy between the two of them and to really go through the highlights of how we can change our world more quickly, getting women into office.
It was a very, I think you would say, a very appreciative crowd.
Absolutely.
And Ms. Pelosi had a number of sort of interesting stories to tell, and I was interested to hear how she spoke of George W. Bush and her relationship.
Well, I think it's so important we need to get back to the civility in our country, and it's so important to understand that as people, you can be wonderful and respect each other's different opinions, and she's so true. It's so important that we have this civility again, and it was good to hear that she had a good relationship as far as understanding the personability of people and respecting them.
Kate, we loved having you on the program. Thank you very much. I know our viewers are going to look forward to the program you're developing.